Our guest today is the director of Ethos Migration Lawyers. I've had the pleasure of watching Peter's journey unfold over the years as we used to carpool in the mornings together. Peter started his business whilst on leave from his banking job and never turned back. Peter's now running a very successful immigration law firm. For those who are scared to take the leap, Peter's courage and determination is of such inspiration. I'm really looking forward to you listening. Welcome to The Leap, a business journeys podcast where we dive deep into the journey of business owners to learn from their successes and failures. Our goal, it's a simple one, to help more businesses succeed. Today's podcast is one that I'm very excited for. To give everyone listening context to the chat today. So Peter is my kubaro, which means that he has baptized my eldest daughter, Zara. And as a result, we're essentially family. We are family. Peter will get upset that I just made that blunder.
Yeah, well, I keep reminding you that, we are family and you need to start acting that way. But
well, that's why I brought you on.
I think we're going to get there, but I'm very happy to be here. I've actually been wondering, when did you start doing the intros for Joe?
The intros for Joe?
Yeah.
Or Joe Rogan,
yeah.
Do you mean? He's coming on next, so he's in the lobby.
No, but you're doing the intro now, and then I'm doing the podcast with him, aren't I?
That's right. So yeah, that's what this is.
I'm really impressed. Good stuff. How long you had the gig for?
All right. I'm not sure if you know how this works, but I'm going to be asking the questions today, so buckle up. But I mean, to give further context, so the one thing, and I think like you've been a part of my journey, and I've been intertwined with your journey as well, because back in it would have been 2016, I was standing at a bus stop. Mm-hmm. We obviously knew each other from the area, but we weren't like super close. And one day you just sort of beeped and waved, and I gave you a call and found out that you were driving into the city while I was taking a bus. So we started carpooling together, and that was really the formation of our bonds. And back then, obviously you were sort of in the early stages. So I've been really close to the journey. It's such an incredible story, and I'm really excited to share it with people. Do you want to just explain like what do Ethos Migration Lawyers do?
Yeah, so essentially what we do is we work with essentially individuals mm-hmm. and organisations. Yep. So essentially from an individual front, we'll assist with primary visa applications mm-hmm. through to cancellation issues, refusals, appeals, the whole suite of sort of immigration matters that apply to individual people and their families. From the other side, from the organisation side, we'll work directly with organisations and assist them with their immigration requirements. So, for example, if there's a large organisation that has multiple offices around the world, and they say, we have an engineer in Germany that we want to transfer to Australia for X, Y, Z, mm-hmm. We'll assist to prepare the visa application, the sponsorship, everything like that from the organisation, and have them transferred to Australia, or other businesses that have temporary visa holders that are working for them. They're happy with them, they want to sponsor them. And then there's obviously a lot more to it, but there's a compliance side, and we give advice to businesses who are employing temporary visa holders mm-hmm. because they've got to maintain their working right conditions and whatnot. So there's it's very broad. That's a little bit, it's sort of in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, that makes
that's
sense.
Essentially what we do. Yeah,
amazing. And how long have you been in business? When did you actually start the?
Yeah, so essentially I started the business. I would say it's interesting because technically I started the business in 2014, but it wasn't until really a year later that I actually started doing something.
And I'm very excited to dive into it. The current state of it, like how many people do you have now? Like what's the size of the business?
Yeah, so at the moment we are, I think, 11 staff. And we've got our offices based in Queen Street mm-hmm. in the city. Been there for about coming up to 6 years. Previously, we were just down the road. We sort of outgrew that office, and then another office came literally like 30-second walk down the road on Queen Street, and it was great for the time, and it had sort of room to allow us to grow.
And grown almost out of that now.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have, because we've had, we have, and that was sort of an idea of sort of what's the next steps, and we decided to move the office. So essentially, immigration is not entirely litigious, so we don't need to be near the courts and the tribunals and all that sort of stuff on a daily basis. It's not like other areas of law that are very, litigious. So I
just learned a new word, litigious.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it means something about.
I don't know. I'll Google it when I get home.
Yeah, I think it's the right word. So because Queen Street essentially has historically been the legal precinct, because really it's close to the courts and whatnot. So we're moving to Richmond. It's been a long process, but
exciting.
Yeah, currently getting that underway.
How does that moment feel for you? Like from, we'll obviously dive in and talk about it, but from absolute humble beginnings to now, like this is a new construction, new builds, custom fit out. Have you walked through the building?
I have a few times. So
what does that feel like?
It's it can be a bit surreal, but at the same time, it's also nervous, like a bit of nervousness, because picking up something and moving it, as sort of, we're not a huge business, but even at our size, with so many bits and pieces that are involved, it's quite scary, because I know that even when we were a lot smaller, we had 3-4 staff at the time, moving from that Queen Street office to the new office, essentially the new office where we are now. That was very stressful. Internet, phones, furniture, it was like that. Now I'm just thinking, shit, on this level here, we're pretty much double what we were then. There's a lot of moving parts, so it's exciting.
Yeah, I haven't thought about the coordinating of, because you can't afford downtime, obviously, with what you do with time-sensitive matters. But like, what about that? Is it daunting being like, wow, this is double the size? Like, I feel almost an obligation to double the team again. Is there a part of that that weighs on you?
It's interesting, because it's a bigger office, and we've got the full fit out with all the partitions and the offices and the boardrooms and the break room and all that sort of thing. And it's enough to allow us to grow to, I think, where I want to grow to. So it's got that room for growth there as well, but it's not ridiculously sort of, there's not going to be 15 empty offices there as either. But yeah, it is. It's really exciting. It's interesting just seeing it. And I even get that today, like every now and then I walk into the office. And I'll, just walk past a consultation, and there'd be, one of my colleagues, lawyers, doing a consultation with someone, and it's sort of, I was used to always speaking with the client, getting them engaged with us and working on the matter for a while, getting the business off the ground, and now those sort of things are happening on their own without too much involvement from my end.
So you're walking past people, seeing them doing a consultation.
Yeah, doing a consultation,
moment, right?
And it's just like, it's interesting. It's quite it's fulfilling, knowing that I've sort of set up this, and that we've got systems and processes in place that can allow that to happen. Where essentially the whole life cycle of a client, within reason, of course, it's not like everyone's just doing everything on their own, but the whole life cycle of a client can.
But the goal's to come off the tools, right? So
that's right.
That point, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's always the goal to sort of get to that point, and I was recently getting to that point. But there's been a range of things which happens in business where, just as you thought you were sort of making progress to sort of get off the day-to-day, managing matters and doing sort of the work that is required to keep things going and working on sort of the business itself, I'm sort of back into the depths of it now. Just due to a range of factors that have come in, but I enjoy it. I love it.
So and it's good. Sometimes it's good to have your finger on the pulse.
100%.
Still,
100%. And I really enjoy the work. So it's not like
but your passion is as well, like really building businesses. Like I remember, back in the day, 2012, we'll call it, right? Like, I feel like we were both different. Like we'd have, coffees in a group, and you and I were always like, oh, a little business here. Like, think about doing this. And we all had these concepts and ideas, right? Was this the first, was migration the first thing that came that was like your proper attempt at a at a business? Did you have any other things that you played around with?
It was my first attempt at a business, but it wasn't my first thought. I always knew that I wanted to, so in the early days, when I was either studying at uni or afterwards when I was working, I always wanted to do a business. I just like the idea. It's not, the cliche, I've run a business, you're going to become a multimillionaire and you're going to have an empire. It's more the fact that you're building something. You've got that flexibility to use creativity, to use your brain to sort of go, what can I do? How can I build this? How can I create something? And I had lots of ideas. At one stage, my being of Greek background, I learnt about my grandmother's big olive orchard. It was my grandfather's and grandmother's big olive orchard they had in Crete. And I came up with this master plan where I would, I'm going to start an olive oil business. So essentially what I was going to do is, go to Greece, suss it all out, create olive oil, but not just olive oil, but all these products. I was thinking I'm going to do soaps, I'm going to do creams, I'm going to do all these sort of things. And I'd always get little ideas like that, but I didn't ever take the leap per se, because it wasn't, when it just wasn't there. It was a good idea, whatever, but I just didn't have it there. And
this is the difference, right? Like everybody has an idea. The business is just the ability to execute on that idea, right? So the concept, like how did the idea of like migration come about? What's the story? Because you're working for the bank.
Correct, yeah. I was in corporate banking, institutional banking. They're completely different. And at the time, I sort of...
It was a good job out of uni.
It was a really good job. It was a really good job out of uni. I was, probably one... Did I graduate? I don't know if I'd graduated. No, I had graduated, and then I got into the role shortly after, and it was really good. I remember applying for all the graduate programs, and I didn't get into any of them, and then I ended up applying for this role, got the job, and then I'll never forget this. When I rocked up, the girl or the lady, or however you want to say it, sitting next to me, who was young as well, just was out of uni, doing the exact same role I was in, was there through the graduate program. So I was like, after all this, there's always a way to sort of, if you're persistent enough and you want it enough, you can get there. And it was interesting because I thought that, unless you get these graduate programs and all these sort of things, it's going to be really hard to get to where you need to go.
Always workarounds, aren't there?
That's right. So migration. So essentially, it was summer 2013, probably. I think it was. I was 23 years old. And I was, interestingly, it's a funny story, but at my parents' house at the front, I had put hedges in, right? So, those little box hedges, you get them from Bunnings, they're really small, and then over time, they grow into like those hedges that you see people. Yeah. I had this idea, I'm like, that would look really nice in the front, right? So I planted these hedges into the front of the house.
And you save money, you buy those real small ones.
I'm not going to get the big ones, they're expensive.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would I get the big ones? Get the small ones, they'll grow.
Yeah.
I got plenty of time. And anyway, so I plant these hedges, right, all along the sort of the front of the house, at the front of the house, which is sort of the boundary of the house before the footpath. And I was really obsessed with, I want to get these hedges to look like I wanted them in my brain, like a really nice refined box. So I went to Bunnings and bought those clippers to sort of fix the hedges. And anyway, I would go out every single night. So that's
ambitious, just assuming that they're going to get that big that you need the hedge trimmers as well.
Well, that's right. I thought all you need to do is plant the hedges, water them, and they just grow. And then over time, you just keep, snipping them and shape them to what you want. Anyway, point of the story is I would go out every single night and water them because I wanted them to grow. And I thought maybe...
This is like a business analogy coming, I think.
Potentially. And I'd go and water them every single night. And my neighbour at the time comes out and he goes, Peter, I see you every night out here watering these hedges. How are you going? Whatever. He was Malaysian, I think he was. Been in Australia for many, many years, but he was a Malaysian guy. And we got into conversation and whatnot, and he told me what he was doing. He was working in immigration. And he said, I'm an engineer by trade, essentially. Studied engineering. I was working as a consultant engineer for many years. And then I studied and became a migration agent. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, what's a migration agent? He's like, essentially what we do is we assist people with visas and we work with students. And he just went over sort of what it all is, similar to what I said before about what we do. And at the time, there was, I think it was the financial crisis in Greece. And there was a lot of Greeks coming from Greece to Australia for opportunities. So whether it be, trying to get their residency here and whatnot. And I've always been interested in things like that.
So that was the light bulb moment. You're like, okay, there's, people that need to migrate from Greece and there's, these migration agents. Did you run off and start doing research? Be like, is there like a Greek specific one? Was that
correct? So
angle?
essentially when he was saying this, I was getting all these light bulbs going off my head. I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is interesting. Because I'm always fascinated with people from all over the world. Yeah. Cultures and customs, and always been fascinated with it. Never thought anything of it, but I was always very interested. Even when I was at the bank and I was working with clients, when people from all over, I'd ask them questions about their countries, and I've always been fascinated by it, genuinely. And anyway, he goes into it, and I'm getting all these ideas. And anyway, we had the conversation, and off I went. I literally remember I went straight into my room, had my laptop set up.
Water's still running?
Yeah, have to, man. The hedges need to grow. And I started Googling all these things, migration agent, immigration law, this, that, blah, 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 all that sort of thing. And I saw what was all about. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Now, I looked at what the requirements were to become a migration agent and whatnot. You needed to do a postgraduate, all these sort of things in immigration law. And I sort of thought, this is interesting. And that night, I started writing a business plan, legitimately. First time ever.
Yeah.
I remember I went on Google and I'm like, business plan template. And found a business plan template, just started writing this business. And the first name we had, I thought of it on the spot, was called New Start Migration. That was the business, because I thought to myself,
I love that we always come up with the names first for like
these
businesses.
Yeah. Before about even knowing what this is all about, I'm thinking of business cards and like logos and anyway. So I started writing a business plan, looked into the requirements for the studies that were required to get registered and all this sort of thing. And just started doing it in the background while still at the bank. And no idea where it was going to take me, what I was going to do.
But was the angle like, did you do much research, like competitor analysis? To be like, yep, so there's not too many Greek specific ones. Was that the angle to start with?
Yeah. Correct. And it was always one of those things where I would do it on the side because I was very set in, where I was working at the time. From a financial perspective, the salary I was getting was actually well above a lot of my peers. Yeah. I was in a really good role, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And I thought you can only grow from here. So I never had the idea. It was never starting the business to leave what I was doing, go off.
So talk to me about that. So you're in the bank, you're, obviously we both come from Greek backgrounds, and it's go to uni, get a good job. You've got that good job, then this idea comes into your mind. How does this all start to play out? So you're working this on the side. Did you walk me through that?
Yeah. So essentially what I was doing at that time was I was studying. So I had to do the study, right?
Yep.
So I was studying through that time, doing the studies, and whilst doing the study, starting to work out how am I going to do this business. And then started sort of just...
And at that point, any idea like how you're going to reach out to people, find people?
No idea.
No idea.
And studying, and then it sort of got to the end of the studies, and I had the exams, and I passed the exams. So it was very complicated. Because it was totally different to what I've ever been used to, like legislation and regulations and policy and all these things. And I passed, thankfully, and the next step was to get registered. So to be able to give immigration law advice, you need to be either a practicing lawyer, so a legal practitioner, or a migration agent. At the time, the regulation were at the time. So I got registered. And then started just sort of setting it up on the side, set up the business and whatnot.
So you do the normal stuff, right? You do website, business name, right? So you've established that. Then was there like all right, now the big part is like, how do I make money? How do I actually get a client? Like walk me through, do you remember your,
Yep.
sort of the first client? Was that still while you were working?
Yeah, so this is where the story gets interesting. So I was doing it on the side, and I think I did like some Google ads. I put in some money in Google
Did you back
AdWords
then?
at the start. Had a little, and I didn't even have I don't think I even had a website at the time. Oh no, I had a very basic website. Sorry, a really basic website. I did Google ads, and I'd get just calls and inquiries coming through, and nothing really
You would have
happened.
built that website yourself, knowing you.
The first one, absolutely,
Yeah,
and the second one.
Yeah.
And I started getting inquiries, and I thought to myself, I didn't like the name. I had New Start Migration. I just didn't like the name. And I thought, I'm going to do a rebrand. A rebrand for a business that hasn't even started.
The client, it would have been confusing for all of the clients.
Yeah. We had so much of the market. Imagine, think of like McDonald's changing name. So essentially, I was very conscious of that. I'm thinking, our presence in the market changed. Our to be strategic. No, but I thought, I want to change it. I want to get a logo done. I want to do it to sort of the way I want to do it. So at the time, Facebook was the thing back then. There wasn't too much other social media.
Yeah.
Everyone was on Facebook, and I posted on the wall or whatever it was called back then. I need any graphic designers that can help me with a logo. And there was a friend of mine who reached out to me, who I was very good friends with throughout high school, in the later years of high school. But then as we sort of moved on and went to uni and all that sort of thing, we sort of lost contact. And he contacted me and he goes, Peter, how you going? Blah, blah, blah. So I can help you with the logo. He's like, I'm also in the process of starting a business. I go, okay, no problem. Like, it's been a while. I haven't spoken. Let's catch up. So I ended up going to his house and he was explaining what he was doing. I was getting really inspired because
he was doing like tech stuff.
He was doing tech, app development.
Yeah,
that's right, app development. And he was essentially setting up his business, very early stages, but he had experience in the industry and he sort of went out on his own. He started setting it up.
Most logical people, right?
Absolutely.
They work employed. So from there, like you were saying, so you got the new logo done and then...
Yeah, so when we went over there and we got very close and we started speaking because I'd ask a lot of questions because he was in the same stage and he was very inspiring in regards to, this is the, we can make this successful. If you put if you really put the effort in, this is great. And he helped me start doing the logo and all that sort of thing. And then we'd be in touch and I'd ask him questions. And he came to me one day and said, because they were working in the lounge room of their parents' house in the suburbs. Mm-hmm. And he came to me one day and said, why don't you come work with us? Set up your little desk and start working there. And I said, what do you mean? I've got a full-time job. He's like, take some leave or something and suss it out.
How long was the leave?
I asked for 2 weeks leave. And went into work, got 2 weeks leave. And then what I did, and this is not one word of a lie, for those 2 weeks, I said to myself, I'm going to pretend like I've resigned and I'm starting this business. So I would get up. He lived about 6-minute drive from my house in Donvale. I would get up every morning. I'd put on a suit. I'd get in my car, Ford Falcon. I'd drive to his house.
Purple?
It was purple. Beautiful car. I'd drive to his house and I had a desk, just one desk, and I would set up my laptop. On my first day, I set up my laptop, started building a website, had the new logo that he hooked me up with. And I was loving it because of the environment. It was like what you see in the movie sort of thing, but not like that, obviously. But we're in the lounge room of his parents' house.
But surely you're sitting there going, I'm wearing a nice suit. Mm-hmm. I have a logo.
Not a nice suit, but it was a suit.
I have no idea what I'm doing and how I'm going to actually get the client.
Absolutely. And I do that every morning and I started building the website and we were talking and whatnot. And then I was doing some advertising and I get an inquiry. This is the game changer. I get this inquiry from a gentleman in Singapore and he wanted assistance with a investor visa at the time, they were called. The investor visa was a visa which is recently closed, but in a nutshell, you invest an amount of money, a large amount of money, it was $5 million, into a designated Australian fund. And amongst other requirements, you'd get a visa for 4 years, you'd transition, it could lead you to permanent residency.
Surely you chuckled.
Absolutely. Investor visa.
Because this would be, like, just for context, you probably would have done a handful of these over time, right? Like these are very rare,
Very
complicated.
rare, even today. Like
Yeah, that's
we've
what I'm
done a
saying.
lot of them,
Yeah.
but it's very rare. These aren't the ones that come often.
Yeah, so this is your first one.
Yes.
Okay.
My first proper inquiry was literally the best inquiry you could get. Legitimately, the first proper inquiry that the guy was serious and we had a conversation and whatnot was the best type of matter visa that you can assist with to this day. Because of the fees and the work involved and whatnot, it's lucrative, it's good. And anyway, as we all know, it's no secret. Uni, studies, they teach you certain elements, but the real learning happens on the job. I'm pretty sure an architect who's done an architecture degree can't walk out of uni and start designing a house. A lawyer, migration agent, any occupation.
So the learning begins.
A doctor, right?
Yeah.
They don't finish uni and they learn on the job.
Yeah.
So I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is likely to go ahead. I need to work out what the hell's
And
going
your gift is your resourcefulness.
Very resourceful, yeah, exactly.
Right? So
I thought to myself, what am I going to do? So I'm just dedicating every minute to learning the ins and outs of this, to the extent where I hadn't received a cent from this guy. I paid for a consultation with a very good immigration lawyer, pretending that my uncle was this client and exactly the same, getting advice. So I could start getting a bit of a head start on how this all works.
So you are, week one, you've gone out of your own pocket, paid for a consultation so you can learn.
Because I understood the seriousness of it too.
Yeah.
As in, I'm dealing with this person's life.
Yeah, I have to get it right.
So I need to get it right.
That's
As in, there's
crazy.
I cannot get it wrong.
Yeah.
As in, if I take on this matter and it's not successful, I want to ensure 100% that it wasn't my fault. So I did everything
That is so cool.
that I needed to do to make sure that if I take on this client, I'm going to do everything perfect.
Did it, and obviously it was successful, that matter? Like, did he proceed? What?
Yeah, this is the best bit. So this happened just before the end, and I sent him
Before the end of the 2 weeks.
The 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, this is great. And the fees for this are a lot of money, right? A lot of money. It was pretty much the fee for this that we quoted was a quarter of my annual salary.
Did you know what to quote, how to quote? How'd you work?
Yes, because I started asking others
Okay.
for
What your fee would be
what
for
the
this
fees are
scenario.
and whatnot, so
Wow.
get an idea. I undercut them as well.
Yeah.
It was a big amount of money. And I'm like, wow, this is a great opportunity. This is endless. If I get, a few of these every week, I'll be doing really well. I sent out the agreement, and up until this point, he's on board. We're emailing everything back and forth. We're great. I'm like, yeah, this is fantastic. I sent out the agreement, and I was pretty much 100% certain we're going ahead.
Yeah.
I'm paying for these consultations. I'm literally up till late in the morning reading the legislation from inside out, understanding everything about this visa. Nothing else, just this visa. And then I thought to myself, fuck this. I'm done. I'm resigning. This is it. I love it. Like, this is fantastic. I just loved it. And I literally went into work on the Monday, handed in my resignation.
Did you tell your parents?
Yes. No, I didn't.
Because that's big, right? You're 24-ish, 23, 24. Got the job that, you're meant to get. And
That any parent would want their kids
Yeah,
to
100%.
sort of be
that they're
secure,
proud of.
stable,
And,
that
yep. And
study.
then you're
they're
like,
in-
I'm going
yeah,
to pull the pin.
correct. And just on that, I don't think I got, apart from my friend who I was working from his house, no one told me to do it. They're like, you're absolutely nuts. Don't do it. Do it slowly. Take your time. Don't go resigning. Take your time. Work out if it's going to work, and, be very conservative about it. And I'm like, no, I love it. Because I genuinely realised I was passionate about it, let alone the money side of things where you can, develop a business that could be financially successful.
And I think it's a good piece of advice to, like, sometimes, like, you got to really choose who you listen to, right? Like, you've got to listen to those people that have what you want.
Correct.
You know what I mean? The people that have, as crazy as it sounds, but yeah, like, family and stuff like that who haven't achieved things and haven't
100%.
created businesses,
It's like there's, you see the business coaches and stuff online and they're selling these services, but I think to myself, what business have you created that's so fantastic? And look, there's a lot of them out there that are proven, but you can tell there's some gimmick ones out there and they're selling that service, but they haven't walked the walk.
I use the analogy of larger personal trainers.
Oh, that's fantastic too. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't buy your service. I'm sorry, it doesn't work.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. And these financial gurus, just like, if you're such a financial guru and investor and all this sort of thing, why are you trying to get money from me? Aren't you? Shouldn't you just be investing and making billions?
Exactly, right. But so everyone said no. But so you've gone and pulled the pin.
Pulled the pin. I then, resigned. And because I was in institutional banking at the time, when you resign from that role, because it was a sort of secured area of the bank, because we dealt with ASX listed companies, I got walked out. So I got walked out 2 weeks, sort of garden leave and all that sort of thing. I went back to the office, the lounge room, and I started work. And then I think it was I took a day off. I started on the Tuesday, and then I get an email. The guy goes, "Hi, Peter, thank you for all your time, this and that, whatever. Unfortunately, my circumstances are changing, not going ahead." And I was like, that's when I hit panic mode. I thought to myself, oh my God, I've just resigned. I thought that this is, even if this was the only one, at least I'm going to get some money to be able to survive until I get this business off the ground. Right now, I have nothing.
And what did you have, like, savings-wise? Like, do you have any money tucked away? Like, how long could you go?
Like, honestly, probably my bank at the time probably had about 20 grand of savings that I'd saved since I was working 14 years old at a chicken shop, just over time, odd jobs. And I was freaking it. But I thought, you know what? This is going to be a blessing in disguise. This is going to work. Because I was really passionate about what I was doing. I actually really was interested in it.
Did the confidence come from the fact that you're like, okay, this lead generation, this, like, the advertising?
Yeah. So
worked?
So essentially, then I thought, let's not worry about getting clients. Let's just build this business to the best I can do it. So I just started doing all the bits and pieces that I thought I'd do. I used a lot of the things I learned at the bank. That I thought to myself, the bank's, it's a top tier. It's one of the top 4. Yeah. They've got proof.
So when you say those things, like, what are these? Like, this week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5.
Yeah.
You've got, as I've said, the websites and all that.
Like, I remember
sort of stuff.
we'd go in and we'd set our agenda for the week, and there was these systems and stuff that they would use, and I'd start researching how can I implement this in my business, and I'd always, from day dot, I started the business and started building the business in a way that, as if I was a business with 50 employees. So everything was done as if I was a bigger business. And just started working on the website, and then started learning, I need to get leads. How am I going to get work coming in? And I thought to myself, digital marketing. Let's look into it. I didn't have the money to engage anyone at the time. So I literally started learning, whilst actually trying to understand the visa framework and the immigration law framework in more depth, apart from the studies. I started learning, how do I market? Like, I need to learn marketing. And I just deep dived into Google ads, paid ads, because I knew SEO, it's going to take time, it's organic, you need to build your website.
And this wasn't a popular thing back then, do you know what I mean? Like, it's still early days, people wrapping their head around.
Yeah, no, it was pretty, it's not like it is today, but it was established, but it wasn't as competitive, essentially, like the cost per click and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
So you could get leads, and you didn't need to have, thousands and thousands of dollars.
How did you, like, right now, I think you guys have, like, close to 500 5-star Google reviews. Like,
more, but nearly 600 soon.
Crazy, right? And it's, like, almost perfect. And,
I sometimes worry. I'm like, we haven't, obviously, you can't please everybody. And I think sometimes because they're really that good, I'm like, I don't want people to think they're fake, because they're legitimately real.
No, they're real.
And it's...
You can't get that many fake ones. But yeah.
I know.
But, like, now you look at it and you're like, okay, there's social proof that, like, you compare it to all of the other ones. It's one of the most highly regarded one. And, it builds trust. How do you go about building trust right at the start when you have zero credibility, 0 runs on the board, no reviews, no social proof? Like, how do you instill that confidence, like, with the first clients that come through the door?
Yeah, so mine was, I think it was the website. You need to have a professional website. So I thought to myself, within my budget, do the website as professionally as I could. And then second, it was cost, to be honest, at the start. It was, and I don't think this is great advice. It worked for us, but I don't think it's always the best advice, because it's very specific. But we were competitors. We'd undercut.
Undercut. Yeah.
So we'd try and be as competitive.
We had
as possible.
lower overheads, so you could afford
lower overheads, undercut, but then you would get the sort of clients that are looking for the cheapest product or service, sorry. So now I see the difference. Now that we're sort of that more premium level, when you're charging right, you naturally attract the right clients who, you know, they want, they're paying for service. But it was just that. It was just professionalism and just, it's not fake it till you make it, but absolutely, I genuinely thought that I could provide the best service possible for these clients because I didn't have a million clients. If I'd get one client, I could actually spend the time.
Just
like
over service, right?
And just over service.
And
make sure I did not leave one bit of piece, like anything unturned.
Okay. So at what point were you like, I'm on here, like I have a viable business, like 6 months, a year, like what was the trajectory? Like were you sort of like close to, you know?
So then over time we'd get some clients. I was getting clients and
like end of year one, were you like,
and it was, was
this
it
is
year
working?
one?
I'm starting to make
I think it was towards the end of, mid to end of year one was good. That's sort of 6 months in, I thought, you know what? I made the right decision. I can make this work. And then towards the end of year one, I thought to myself, this is, we can look at taking the next step now. And the next step was literally, because at the time, I couldn't bring clients to a lounge room in Dunvale. So I was getting clients, but you'd need to speak to them first to do a consultation to understand.
Was your office being renovated at the time?
No, I just said it was getting built. No, so what I did is I got a virtual office. So I still remember it was like 5883 Little Collins Street in the city, and virtual office, have your address, you can get all your mail sent there, and you can use the address in your advertising and all that, so it looks like you got an office in the city, and you could rent boardrooms and meeting rooms on a case by, ad hoc. So every time I'd have a consultation, I'd book one of them, I'd meet the client there, and I'd do it. So I was driving up and down, like sometimes multiple times a day to the city, and parking was a nightmare. Because it was expensive and all that sort of thing. So half the time it was, I'd meet a lead and I wasn't charging for consultations or anything at the time. And I'm paying like $70 for parking and I'm just wasting time and petrol and everything. But I thought I need to do what I need to do. So I was literally just bleeding money. But then you'd get the clients that engage us. And then we just kept building. And I thought, all right, this is it, next step. So I decided with that guy that I was working in the lounge room with, who I just want to make it clear as well, was very foundational to the business. And
because he was the only one that believed in you.
He believed in me and he pushed me. And I will always be grateful for that guidance. Obviously, I did the work.
Well, you did that for me. You were the one being like, just go out on your own. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It was that.
Yeah.
That's what I had from him, and believed in me and pushed me. And I'll forever be grateful. Just want to make that clear. Because it was, I was hesitant, very hesitant.
Incredible. So that point there, so were you engaged by that point? Like
no, so I wasn't engaged at that point. I was dating my now wife, and we moved into the guy I was working with in his lounge room, in his parents' lounge room. He wanted to go into an office, and we rented a office on Collins Street at Docklands, right at the end where all the banks are now. 838 in Docklands was the name of the building. Anyway, it was just a blank room, like we rented like a cheap tenancy. It was like one of those new developments in Docklands. It was just a blank room. So what we did is he had 3 people working with him at the time, 3 desks up against the wall, 1, 2, 3. I had my desk up against the wall. All we had in the office was the lights, an internet connection, each of our desks and our laptops. Nothing else. I think later on we actually upgraded and got one of those little Nespresso coffee machines, which was cool. So yeah, and I was worried at the time because I was getting clients, but it wasn't enough to probably pay, 40, 50 grand lease or whatever it was at the time. Half of it anyway. Yeah. And we moved into the office and started, I started really thinking I'm really enjoying it, and I was getting more clients. I was doing well. And
year 2, that's when you moved on your own to Queen Street?
So year 2, then yes. But an important piece that I need to add is I got to the point where I was getting lots of clients and I needed help, but I couldn't afford a employee. So I thought to myself, let's do an internship. I don't know how ethical that is, to be honest, in this day and age, but essentially I'm like, I'll do an internship and get an intern on board. And Zeffie applied for the role. There was a few other applications, and she comes in like properly. She thought she was applying for a proper firm, and it was. We would never, even when I was at the office at in Docklands, I'd never bring clients into that shared office space because it was just a room with 4 desks or 5 desks. But there was one of those meeting rooms, so we had the interview with Zeffie. Anyway, did the interview with her, and she was really good. And afterwards, I emailed her, "Dear Zeffie, well, I'm pleased to advise that you've been successful."
Do you ever laugh about that with her now?
Oh, all the time. And she took the role. But the funny bit is, and this is, we talk about it with the staff all the time, is that I asked her in the email, I'm like, "You're successful, but can you please bring your own laptop in?" I'm not even like legitimately asked her to bring her own laptop because I didn't have money to buy a laptop.
How important is that first hire?
For me, that was the biggest thing. That first hire, if it wasn't Zeffie that applied for that role and decided to actually just go into this office with like 4 random guys in like this thing, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Have you ever asked her like why?
I don't think I ever asked her why. I always asked her, "I can't believe you did that." I'd always say, "I can't believe you did that," but I never asked why. I'm definitely going to ask her why.
Yeah.
And anyway, we started doing really well. She was committed. She loved it. She was into it, and very intelligent. And we made the decision, we're going to get our own office now. We're moving away. So then we moved to Queen Street, just myself and Zeffie at the time. And we started, and it was really cool because that office actually had offices that had like
boardroom.
a boardroom, not big. It was a small office, but it actually had a fit out in it.
Yeah. I remember, so that when you were taken in, that was the office that you were...
Correct. That's when you came and saw it for the first time. And we just kept going together. And it got to a point, and I said to Zeffie, I'm like, we're really onto something. Because she was very much like me, as in, do the right thing by the client. Let's just get the best results. Not trying to make money. As in, let's just try and cover our expenses. Let's do the best thing by the client.
Was it just like, you always look at these businesses and like yours has been fairly, linear, obviously with a period now of like sort of recent growth in the last 2 years with, sort of almost, you've added like 5 people in the last 2 years, almost doubled.
Correct, because it's I think a big term was when we moved from sort of that migration agent firm or agency into a law firm.
And how does that differ in terms of, was it an ability to attract staff or ability, like were you getting...
I just think it took us to the next level where essentially we were able to market ourselves at a higher level. We were able to approach, or, it's sort of, it was turning up the knot, sort of the stakes essentially, and thought to myself that, we can really take this to the really high level.
One thing out of curiosity, like I know you were really apprehensive at one point, charging like an upfront engagement fee, like a consultation fee.
Yep.
Right. And I know for a lot of businesses, like things like that are scary. Like I know in the mortgage broking space, they spend a lot of time doing stuff that doesn't eventuate.
Yep.
Some have started to charge like a mandate fee, but it's like a really scary move. And a lot of the time you find out that your conversion actually increases by doing that. Like, was that a big...
Well, that's at the start, it was free consultations.
Yeah.
And moving to actually paid consultations was a big one. I'm like, who's going to pay for a consultation? They're free, but they're not, because the right places charge a fee, and maybe it's a human psychology thing, but free versus paid, 100%. It's what you were saying.
100%. And did you notice that though? Like that was part of the move. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just slowly kept increasing the consultation fee. And every time I'd do an increase, I'd get scared, like, oh my God, we're not going to get clients, and there'd be no change.
One of the biggest things I saw you do, can you talk to us? So 2016, did you get married in 2016? Actually, I better
2017, I got married.
I might not push the envelope on specific dates.
I was about the same, mate. Trying to have fun
in a pickle. Right. So you bought your now home, Vista Street.
Yeah. I proposed to Maria, my wife.
Yeah.
And this was at the time where the business was very early stages. We're doing okay. I was pretty much replaced my wage that I had when I was previously working. And she said yes. Don't know why. But she said yes, and we decided to start looking for a house together. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Because I think one thing for context, like one thing that I've always admired and where we 100% differ, I am super conservative.
Yeah.
I'm super conservative. Whereas, you know, you're always assuming like 20% growth, 20% growth, 20% growth, and like willing to, I guess, risk it with some of the decisions you make, which, obviously
correct
is probably the better approach. But talk to me about that.
Yeah, so essentially we're looking for a house and we wanted to stay in the area. The area is very expensive, but it is what it is. And I'm like, no, I'm staying in the area. I want to buy a house. So we went to auctions and we'd keep missing out. And we ended up going to an auction. And we found the house we loved, which is still our current house. Loved, and I got to the point where we had our budget in mind, which was sort of reasonable. It was stretching, but it was nowhere near our budget. Like, to give an example, this went like 30% over our budget. And I just kept bidding, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to get this. I don't care. I'm just going to get it.
Did you know at the time how you worked at a bank, so did you have like pre-approvals?
Yeah, I wasn't in the lending, so I didn't really know. I don't even know if I had a pre-approval at the time, to be completely honest with you. No, I think I would have, roughly. And I just kept bidding until I got it. And we paid at that time a lot of money for this house. Like nowhere near, like if you were to look at our financials at that position, at that time, our incomes and what we're at, there's no way you can, do that.
Yep.
This might get me in trouble because I don't know if it's... Anyway, I
guarantee you the ATO ain't listening to this podcast, brother.
Well, it's all done and dusted now. And I just...
But didn't you pay more, essentially? So
So not only did I overpay, not that I overpaid for the house, but I paid what I had to pay to secure the house. And then it got to the point where, I'm like, shit, I don't have this money. I need to get a loan. And that's a good question about the pre-approval, but I don't remember. And I don't think I had a pre-approval, to be honest, because I still remember sitting down with the mortgage broker and him laughing at me. Saying, he's like, well, what have you done? And because I was showing him the financials and all this, like, we can't service this. And then I found a more creative mortgage broker at the time. And it wasn't, I don't know if the regulations were strict, but he goes, all right, this is what we're going to need to do. We need to declare your income or your business income like 3 times what it actually is. So I don't know exactly what it was, but let's say, for example, it was $100,000. Let's say I made $100,000. He told me you need to declare that you made $300,000. I'm like, but I didn't. He's like, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. He's like,
so did you have to pay tax on $300,000?
So I'm like, all right, we did it. And then I did that. I lodged the tax return and I had to pay tax on money that I didn't even earn to secure the house. But I thought to myself, I know I'm going to make this work.
That is balls that I don't have. And and I've started, like, I play it way too safe. And like part of me is like, oh, my parents work so hard to, do, to put us in this position, blah, 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 blah. And like people look at it and go, oh, he doesn't, maybe I don't play it safe because I've got my own businesses and all that sort of stuff. But someone actually said to me, shout out to Derek, one of my clients, went for dinner last night, and similar background, we'll have a conversation. His parents, came over from Vietnam, very similar story. And he said to me, you are doing them a disservice
100%
by playing it this safe.
100%. Because what they've done for you gives you that platform that others don't have to be able to have that safety net. If everything was to go wrong, you're going to have a roof over your head, right?
Yeah.
One way or another. It may not be in... You might be in, in the country, but you're going to have a roof over your head.
That hit me.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
So with in those early days with you, right? And there's people listening that are going to, it's such a scary step and such a scary thing to do. Like, what gave you the confidence to sort of back yourself so much?
I didn't have that sort of safety net that you're referring
That's
to.
That's what I'm
right?
saying.
Yeah, I genuinely.
Do you think that helped that your back was against the wall and you had no option but to?
Yeah, well, I thought to myself, I want to achieve as much as I can achieve, and I found something that I really was passionate about outside of money. I am passionate about the work, and I said, let's just do this. Let's just try and do this and just put everything into it, and let's just make this happen. And I remember reading a quote, or because at the time I was always reading about like business and the mindset and all that sort of stuff. And it was something about, if you try and continue trying no matter how hard it gets, and you stay persistent, you will make it happen. And I truly believe that at the time, where I, no matter how hard if I just kept sticking at it, I would make it happen. I was fortunate enough where the business sort of organically grew all in a good direction. I never got to a position where I'm like, oh shit, this is really bad. It was just organically growing, and I was taking reasonable steps to grow. But I just thought, no, let's just do this. I'm just going to do this.
But there was I think people listening, right, and we always thought this, right? We'd look at these people that had these businesses and we're like, oh, they must be really special, or they have these certain abilities. Like from your perspective now, being in this position, like for young Peter, 21, listening at home to a podcast like this, what's the reality like?
Which I did all the time.
Yeah. What is the reality of getting into position that you're in now?
You need to have the courage, and I think it's maybe one of those things where we're very fortunate in Australia. We live in the best country in the world. We have a lot of comfort. Not everyone, of course, but we have a lot of comfort. It's getting out of your comfort zone and pushing and thinking, what is really the worst that could happen? And it's different now. Being married and having kids is a big game changer. Very different. At that time, I had no mortgage. I had no children. I had no wife. I had no real obligations. At the end of the day, if it didn't work out, I've got a house to go back to. I'm still at home, in the family home. But it's if you want something, you know what it is, and it's very cliche, but if you want something bad enough, or, if you want something bad enough, you'll get it. You just got to stick to it. It needs to have legs as well, though, as in it needs to have some sort of element to it.
It needs to be a market.
You can't just say that, I'm going to, build a business selling microphone covers, because no matter how much you want that,
I think that's a good market right now.
It probably is, it's really
I think it's one of those situations where I think sometimes, when the situation isn't bad enough, right? Like, and the analogy here I'll use is like in a relationship, when it's like, it's not the best, you got like, talking ex-girlfriend, right? It's not the best, but you're like, it's not the worst. And sometimes you need like them to cheat on you for you to be like, for that switch to
definitely
to flick.
That's a good example.
Sometimes
you don't know how good,
you
don't know what you have unless you've experienced something. It's exactly like the girlfriend analogy. You could go through a really shit relationship, terrible toxic relationship, and then you find a person that you click and you're really well, and you actually appreciate them for who they are because you know that there's another side. Sometimes if you just have it in front of you, you can't really appreciate it too much more than what it is because you've got nothing to compare it to.
100%.
So mine was all about I want more out of life.
Yeah. And now, like, that you have responsibility, right? Because obviously, the longer you're in business, as you do, you upgrade your life, you upgrade, your investments, there's, your expenses, like, your expenses now for a month would have been what they were for 2 years, right? When you first set out.
Probably 10.
Does that scare you when you look at
when
you look at your wage bill?
It does. Oh, the wage bill, yeah.
Or just, that
any bills, lots of the bills. And sometimes what scares me a lot is the desensitization I sometimes have to it, where I'm just managing transactions and wages and things like that. And they're big figures. And I'm just doing these things on the daily, transferring back and forth, paying bills, doing this, doing that, huge sums. And I'm not thinking twice. I'm not thinking twice about the amount of money or anything like that. It's just that this is serious stuff. And I sometimes, just because it's the daily grind, you got your wages, you got your this, you got everything you need to pay, and you get desensitized to it. And sometimes I go think and go, whoa, I just paid a tax bill for X, Y, Z. It's like, whoa, that's huge.
Yeah, yeah. I think you need to smell the roses, right? Like,
definitely.
It's important to that. Like, happens to everyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, I still remember the name of my first placement. I remember, do you know what I mean? The first invoice that I sent. Clearly, and now when you're doing at a few a week, let's say, right? It's like you don't get that. You need to sometimes sit down and be like, wow,
100%.
Yeah, it's incredible. What's next?
What's next? It's a good question. I really don't know. I don't have a specific goal in mind.
Do you still have the same balls, or now that there's so much
I got married, mate. There's no balls left.
I know who has them, but
so I do want to continue. I want to grow. I want to, but nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because even from a financial perspective, I could probably double the team, and the result. The bottom line is we're not going to beat around the bush. Everyone goes to work because they're trying to make money. If you like what you do, that's a bonus, right? So looking at it from a financial perspective is that, and I've looked at this in the past, but I could double the team and probably make the same or less than what I'm doing now. And it may not, from a cultural perspective and all that sort of thing, may not be as good with the team because, we have a great team.
Yeah, amazing. Well, mate, I think that's it's such an incredible journey. Like my takeout for sure, like is just the sheer balls that it takes to do what you do, to put it all on the line. And I think it's important to have those people in your life that do back you and do say, hey, no, actually, like I know everyone's saying it's a bad idea, but give it a go. I think that's
have confidence within yourself to do it as well. Don't worry about what other people say.
Yeah,
listen to the advice that you wanted, but have confidence in yourself. And go, I'm not special. I'm no one is any, like, I reckon if you just meet these big CEOs, that you'll just realise they're just normal people.
Absolutely.
It's like teachers. Remember when we were young? You'd look at teachers, think there's something different. They're not. They're just humans.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just go and give it a go. Give it a crack.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, mate, it was a pleasure to have you on. I know you're knocking on the door to be part of this esteemed podcast team. But yeah, appreciate it. It's always been, as I said, a source of inspiration, a story, and definitely part of my journey. So it's so good for this to come full circle and be sitting here today.
For sure, it's great. And that's one of those smell the roses things you were talking about. This is, look at that.
Absolutely, 100%.
Is Joe coming now or?
Joe Rogan's on next. Cool. So tune in for the next episode, guys. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, Nathan. That was great.
Thanks for listening to The Leap. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a follow, or even better, share it with someone who you think will get value out of it. Big thanks to our main sponsor, Ethos 360 Recruitment. It was actually just us sponsoring ourselves.
This podcast has been produced by The Content Engine.
We got the remedy. College of Giants. Selling the shit, we buying it.